Hey all, Kyle here again from Diurnal Productions. Today I'm going to be re-recording the video that I have uploaded that talks about using Firebase and add-ons generally in the Godot game engine. I'm going to go into a few more explanations, and I'm going to increase the font size on my text editor so you can actually see what's going on. So let's jump right into it. Okay, as you can see here, I've got just my plain editor open. This is just a completely blank project. There's nothing particularly special about this. And what we're going to do first is I'm going to show you how to get add-ons from any repository that you can find on the internet. So to do that, we're going to go to GitHub in this case. I'll show you this here. I'm not recording that screen. There we go. It's github.com/godotnuts/gmvu. This is an add-on I just made for Diurnal Productions that is a new user interface creation add-on, and it allows you to easily generate your user interfaces so that you can do it in code and not have to just always manipulate a scene tree. And this follows what's called the MVU pattern, or model view update, and this is a common pattern currently that is pretty popular. It includes stuff like React and Swift UI and Jetpack Compose, and there's plenty of other languages now that follow this exact pattern. Flutter is another one. So I think it's a really useful thing to have for Godot. It's more of a code generator than it is an actual way of building your views, but once you have the views built after making this, or after using this, you can save them as separate files and manipulate them however you want. It's pretty easy and straightforward to use, so let me show you how to do it. So first of all, this is the code that's in it. It's not very much, it's just this fluent generator really. And then how you get it is you just hit download here, download zip. I already have this on my machine, so I'm going to go find it. And you see this add-ons folder. You'll have that basically for every add-on that exists, and under it, it will have the main folder for the add-on, and then within that, it has all the code. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy that add-ons folder. We're going to go find our actual project, and we're just going to paste it in. Now, because I've already recorded this video once, I'm going to go and look at my other project, but then I'm going to just reproduce everything on this screen. So now we have our add-ons here, and you can see we've got all this, and you can see the code here. Now these constants, those are things that we can ignore for now, and that's pretty much all this is. Normally in plugin you'd have a bunch of code in order to, say, add a new singleton or something along those lines. So that's all you have to do for adding add-ons from GitHub, as long as they have that add-ons folder. If they don't have the add-ons folder, you have to add it yourself, and then you put the folder for the add-on itself underneath that. Now, another way that you can get add-ons, and I should mention add-ons in Godot are just a way that people can share code, and you can share code. You can build them very easily, and what it does is it allows you to just very quickly add custom nodes or add different functionalities and features to the editor. You can actually completely manipulate the editor with add-ons, which is really, really nice, I think. And you have to make them tools typically, but I'll get a little bit more into that later. So one other asset that we're going to use here in the asset library, that's this button up here. It's kind of hard to see, but yeah, is my Firebase plugin. And I'm going to show you how to set that up today as well. So we're just going to click on it. And these other ones are decent. This Firebase Lite is just a smaller version of, it's not exactly mine, but it's a smaller version of it made by somebody else that has a smaller footprint, but also doesn't support all the libraries that I support. And at the same time, this Analytics Android one is an Android specific one that just adds analytics, and it doesn't use the REST API, which is what I use. So this one is also by me, Godot Firebase 4X. So you can go and you just have to hit download, and it'll show you everything that it's going to download, all the files. And you want to put in ignore asset root. That'll make it so it puts this into the add-ons folder correctly. So we just hit install. Now at the bottom right, you'll see there's a few errors here. These are actually completely inconsequential. That has to do with basically just how Godot loads plugins for you. And next thing we're going to do real quick is just go into project settings and plugins, and we're going to turn on GMVU and Godot Firebase. Now, you don't technically have to turn on HTTP SSE client. That is for a different functionality within Godot Firebase, but it doesn't need to have it on. It's just a useful plugin for some people who are developing plugins based on that exactly. So what I'm going to show you now is after it downloaded it, it actually put it right into add-ons, and you can see you got all the stuff here. It's a little bit hard to see because the font size again is a little bit small, but what we're going to do is we're going to now start using our code specifically in the Fluent generator. So let me show you how to do that, and it's going to be pretty straightforward. I tried to design this as a new language to make it very, very easy. What we're going to do is we're just going to create some folders for this. We're going to go and create generator views. I accidentally put that, let's see here, why is that? Oh no, I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. We're going to create scenes. We're going to create folder for generated views. And under scenes, we're going to create one for UI. And we're going to create assets. Sorry, I know this takes a little while. And create new folder images. And this is just to help us get set up with everything. There's nothing that's absolutely necessary here aside from the add-ons folder. So let's go ahead and look at creating a file here. We'll create in generator views a new script. And we're going to type in, you can see this says Fluent generator here. We're going to type that in here as well. It's a little bit hard to see. Let me see if expanding this helps. No, it doesn't really. But we're going to type that same value under inherits on the create script dialog. You want GD script inherits Fluent generator. You leave everything else the same except for the path. Because we right clicked on generator views, we want to type in the path to our thing. We're going to call this login view generator.gd. You can just leave the GD on there. Hit create. And then we're going to open that file. Now, if you look at it, it starts off with yellow highlighting, and that's bad. In Godot, that means there's a warning. So we don't want that. And it turns out this is, I wouldn't exactly say it's a bug, but it's a slight problem with Godot, where if you inherit a tool script, it does not put the tool annotation at the top of it. And that is why it was giving you the warning. It says basically that this is a tool, or this should be a tool because the parent script is a tool as well. Okay, now for this, for the next part, we're going to add this view function, and you can see how to use this. You just come back here into the actual file and you copy these. These can be overridden, and in fact must be overridden, so we'll just copy and paste them from there actually. Now the next part, for export path, we obviously generated file is just a generic name. Let's just name it login view. And I'm not adding the .tscn because in the future I'm going to be trying to make this thing also do script generation. So we want to add the .tscn ourselves later, as well as the .gd later. That happens automatically with the framework. Now, as for this custom control here, this view, what this is this is the thing that generates the view from Fluent Generator. So I'm just going to jump right into it and show you how to do this. You can basically just start typing the names of controls in the Godot user interface system. So we can go like control, and we can say named. We're going to name this UI, and we're going to set the anchors on it. We're just going to say full rect. Now this one you can see comes from this file, comes from the Fluent Generator file. A few of them I haven't added yet, and I will be doing that soon. But ultimately what this does is this just makes it easier for you to type these things in instead of having to type out a long value. So I'll do mouse filter, ignore. Now ignore here just makes it so our root UI node doesn't start intercepting mouse clicks. And we're going to type in script path. Now this is interesting. You can actually type in a path to your script. So we're going to put in, I already typed in res scenes UI, and we're going to say login view.gd. Now this doesn't exist yet. So we're going to go and create that now. We're just going to copy that, go into UI where we put it. We say new script, and in inherits we're going to put control because it's that's what this root node is. It's a control, and I like to have it be tied to that. And we'll just hit create. Now we don't actually have to add anything to that view or that script, excuse me. And we're going to leave it for now. We're going to come back to it later. Okay, and after this, what we're going to do is we're going to come down and tab over, and we're going to hit dot again, and we're going to type in children, put that and that. Now, it seems to be, let's see here, what happened? Oh, an expected statement, but I found an indent instead. Okay, we're going to come back up to the top and hit dot children, and we're going to put that in and there. So it's a little bit big still. We'll scroll over a little bit so you can see. All I've done is I've added an array and closed the array inside these parentheses. So after pressing children here, allowing children as, what these are called are modifiers. Each one of these is a modifier. So now for our, this is just going to be our login view. So I'm going to give it a background, I think. So I'll just type in texture rect, and you can see there's other ones there as well. Texture button, texture progress bar, texture rect. We're going to say named background texture. Nice thing about this is that when it generates the views, it will put a node in that is actually named background texture. Now, if you don't name your root control, one thing to note is that you will get an error when exporting it, or I should say when generating your control node. So make sure you do that at the top level here, or it will give you, it's not an error, but it gives you a weird kind of bug when you actually physically open the scene that's generated. And let's see here, we've got texture. Now this is where you would put in your texture. I'm going to actually copy paste code from my previous version because it's a little bit odd. And let me go here to my previous version also, come into images, copy this background texture, and we're going to go into assets, images, and put it in there. Now in theory, that should work. We're going to find out if it does. It looks like it should. Just want to make sure something. Yeah, I think this should work because it's going by the path. Now let's see here. We have dot expand, and we're going to say texture rect dot expand mode dot expand fit height. And see, in here we can do the dots. I think that's because it's in parentheses actually. And we'll do stretch. And note, all of these modifiers are just things that you would have in Godot that you would kind of expect for modifying the different values within the editor. So like you'll be able to see all these things in the editor, but this just has them by some more simple name. And we're going to switch this to keep aspect centered, and we'll drop down again, anchors. We're going to make this full rect again, and we're going to say children here again. And we're just going to drop down again like that. And now we're going to start making our children for this. Now in the original version, I had this as an H box. It ended up looking kind of ugly, so I'm going to keep it just as a V box. And you note, I try to keep things as short as possible. And this is box A center. Now the reason I have to specify box here is simply because there's a number of things that have alignment center in them. For example, the flow container does as well. So we want to make these, kind of as specific as possible since they are different values. We'll name this menu items. We'll say grow H, grow both. And this is a bit of an odd one. The reason we need grow H in here is because when we do the following thing, anchors V center wide. So that's going to put the list of menu items in the middle, centered, and tall. The wide in this case means tall because it's vertical. But what grow both does is if we didn't have that, it would default to grow end, and the place that the anchors would put it would be just to the right of the very center. So you would see the list of menu items, but they'd be off center from themselves. So by saying grow both, it'll put it directly in the center. Both sides will grow an equal amount, and you'll have it exactly centered rather than either in front of or behind it. Okay, now we're going to say children again here. And we're going to type it correctly. And now what we're going to say is label, because we have label available. Now it comes with a default text value, so we're going to say waiting to log in, ... Now this is just a debugging thing, so you can kind of add this or leave it out, whatever you want. We can say .unique equals, or .unique true. That will make it unique in the scene tree. So you'll see that in a moment once I've generated this. And we're going to say named login status label. And that just gives us, a label so that we can kind of tell where we are, since this video is not going to go too far into the using Firebase process. That's going to come in a future video. This one's more just set up for actually getting authenticated with Firebase and creating your Firebase backend. We're going to say line edit, and that does come with text. I'm not going to give it default text. We're going to say named email input. We're going to say placeholder text though. That takes another string, so we're just going to say email. We're going to say unique true also, because we're going to have to reference it later. And for the next part, we're just going to put in .min size. We'll say 120. I think that's kind of a reasonable size. Now, a lot of these values, a lot of these modifiers that you see exist on the base control, but not all of them. So for example, placeholder text does not exist there. So you shouldn't be able to see that and use it if you were to call .placeholder text on control. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that the functions that you want to use exist on the values in this class in Fluent Generator, and you can see all the custom values here. And we've got a few specific things. We've got custom 9-patch rect, etc. there. So that's all just useful things to know when you're using add-ons. You can actually go and physically look and see what the code is doing. Don't forget that. It's not like the code in other languages. When you get a library, it's sometimes kind of hard to look at the code, but in Godot that's not the case. You pretty much get shipped with the code in every case, and you can just go look at it and see what it's doing and figure out what it's doing wrong if it's doing something wrong, or figure out how to do something that it's doing that you want to do in your own code. So as the next part, we're going to make another line edit. We're going to call it password input. We're going to say placeholder text password. We're also going to make that true, and we're also going to give it a min size, even though technically we don't have to, because something else in the tree has a min size. It'll expand to that value, but we're going to do that anyway. And next, for this, we're going to make another VBox. We're going to say align box A center again. And for VBoxes, keep in mind, or HBoxes, any type of box container, the alignment is referring to where it puts the items. So in this case, the items will be centered. And we'll say children again. And we'll do button.text, login with email. I will just name this login email button. We'll also make that unique. I'll show you why we're making that unique in a moment. We're going to say login anonymous, name that anonymous login button. And here we'll say text sign up with email, named sign up button, unique true. So I think these are pretty obvious, but the first one is you want to log in with an email and password. The second one is supporting anonymous authentication, which I'll explain when I get into the Firebase part. And the third one is just signing up with an email. We've put this in a VBox, and the reason is once you put things into an HBox, it gets kind of squished, so I didn't want to do that. Next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make some changes real quick to our project settings, because they're a little bit wonky for what we want to do. We're going to make this 640 and 360, I believe it is. Let's just calculate it. 180 times 2, yeah, 360. And then down here we're going to do 1280 times 720. Is that right? Yes, 720. And we're going to come down and we're going to put this onto, I'm just going to put it on canvas items, I think. We'll see what we do. And I'm going to turn off allow high DPI, because that's something that Mac makes a little bit odd, and I am on a Mac. Note that any shortcuts I'm going to show you are Mac specific, so you don't want to mess that up if you're using a Mac versus if you're using Linux or if you're using Windows. And I think for the time being that's all we need here. We're going to find out later. Okay, we've got our export path set. So for the time being, let's just actually generate this. So on a Mac, you can, well, on any machine, you can go to File. This is in the script editor, not up at the top bar, and hit Run. And here you can actually see what the shortcut is. So for me, it's actually Control-Shift-X, and it should generate it. Let's take a look and see if it did so. So it did not. Let's see why that is the case. Ah, I see why. Okay, so our imported thing did not kind of work correctly. Whoop, hit the wrong button there. What was that? Let's take a look again here, and I would expect, oh, I see. Perhaps that was the issue. Okay, let me just open this. Okay, it looks like it's correct here. Let me clear this and try generating this again. Control-Shift-X. No, it still doesn't like it because of... Everything here looks like it should be correct. Let me try re-importing that. Alright, let me try this instead. Alright, I'm going to delete these from here and the background texture as well. I'm going to do something a little bit odd. I'm going to open a new scene, or actually I'm just going to say other node sprite. It's a little trick you can do if you need to get textures. Keep in mind that, oh, that's actually not the texture I wanted. There we go, that's the one I wanted. You can just hit save as. Now it'll tell you this resource can't be saved. So if we go to make unique first, then we hit save as, we can actually save it as whatever we want. And we'll go into assets, images, and we'll say background texture here. Okay, now background texture should exist. This thing should be able to reference it. Notice we put it into images correctly. Let's just see if that works. No, it's still giving us an error. It says expand doesn't exist, even though I know for a fact it does. Oh, I see. It's because I have it on texture because I forgot to close texture. There, that's the issue there. And this has it there. I put it in the wrong place. Sorry about that. We can actually close this. Don't save. That was just the sprite that we had before. So we'll save this file. I had a parenthesis in the wrong place and was trying to put it onto texture instead of onto the load call instead of onto texture itself. So always keep that in mind. Keep your parentheses tight. Now I hit Control-Shift-X, and in our generated views you can see the view. So it looks pretty good. I'm going to try to update the editor very quickly to increase the size. Let me see editor settings. Type in font here. So it says 14. Oh, let me go back to 14 for this. Oops. Okay, so that's reasonably good there. I don't know if it really significantly updated the engine font size itself. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but we'll leave it for now. And yeah, you can even see here it's got the script already applied. And you can apply scripts to any of these sub-values as well. And note they all have references to them. They all have unique names, so you can already start writing code here. Okay, so the next thing we're actually going to do is we're going to create a new singleton, and we're going to actually just start working with Firebase. So that concludes the use of the Fluent generator for building a UI. This is not exactly a normal plugin that you'll find on the asset lib or anywhere. It's just a text generator or a view generator. So this whole thing was made with this tiny amount of code. If you've ever used Godot to make a view in code, it is significantly longer than this. If you want to do any type of complicated, like setting the expand and the stretch and the anchors and adding children and so forth. This just makes it very, very simple, very straightforward. So let's get into our Firebase usage. The first thing I'm actually going to do is go into scenes, make a new folder called singletons. And we're going to add our own singleton here. It's going to be called fire.gd. And you can just leave it as a node. You can make it any node-based thing. I think the only thing you can't make it is resource or reference counted because they're not allowed to be singletons because they're not attached to the tree. And we'll actually just go into project settings presently and make it a new singleton. You'll note when I turned on the Firebase plugin over here, Firebase there, it actually added that singleton to the tree for me because that's what the plugin does. And that will allow us to use it far more easily. So we'll do this, go into scenes, open fire, and it'll show fire there as the node name. So we want to hit OK on that. Now this file will automatically be loaded as a singleton whenever you run the game. So the first thing we're going to type in here is signal logged in. Then we're going to do signal login error. And I'm going to actually copy paste some code from my side project because I don't want to make any typos here. So what you type in now is Firebase. Remember that's the singleton that exists because of the Godot Firebase plugin. .auth, .login succeeded, .connect, and then we're just going to call this onLogin succeeded for our function. Now what this auth is this is the REST API for Firebase represented in Godot code. And auth, standing for authentication, is a method by which you can sort of log users in and have them prove that they are the person that you're expecting. And Firebase supports that out of the box. It's completely free and really, really nice actually to be able to, say, okay, this user has a unique name or identifier on the back end, and you can just always reference it. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Let's create our handlers now. So we'll say on login succeeded, void pass. Now this function, you can't tell easily. The way to actually be able to tell is you go into the plugin itself, go into add-ons, Godot Firebase, auth, and then auth. I try to name everything similarly, and you look at the actual thing. And so the actual signal, so login succeeded takes an auth result. And if we think about it, in this case, it's going to be a dictionary. So I'm just going to type it to a dictionary, and it's complaining because it's not used yet, but we're just going to write our other function here real quick. And this one, if you go back and look, takes a code and a message. I don't remember the types on them, so I'm just going to leave it. And for this one, we're actually just going to type in login error .emit, and we're not even going to pass the code on the message. You don't have to. Given that, to keep this tight and clean, we're going to add underscores. That'll tell Godot or GDScript's parser to ignore them and not cause errors for them. For this one, we're going to do something very important here. Now keep in mind, this is probably the most important line of this entire video. We're going to say firebase.auth.saveauth auth. And then we're going to type in loggedin.emit. This line here, what this does is it saves the value of this authentication dictionary to the user's hard drive. And this doesn't have any passwords or anything like that in it. It does have a refresh token. And the refresh token makes it so that you can actually log this same exact user back in, even if they're actually only using anonymous authentication, because anonymous users in Firebase get a unique ID as well. And that's important so that you can, for example, ban users from using your game if you need to. If some user is clearly trying to hack your stuff and you're recording what that ID is for the actions that they're making, you absolutely can say, put this user in a ban list, and if that user is in the ban list, don't let them send code or don't let them send stuff. And that can all be done via the rules in your various places. I will show you how to do that in a future video. For now, just make sure you do save auth, and then in a moment I'm going to show you how to actually load it. So let's go ahead and take a look at that actually. So I'm going to copy and paste what I have here so I don't make a typo. We have func attempt login, and it's going to take an email and a password. And the first thing we're actually going to do is check to see if we need to log in. And all this does is check to see if that file that's created exists. If it does, then you have to log in. Now this might be a little bit odd. This is named this way, this check auth file, due to old code. And so many people use it, I didn't feel justified in changing it. So the idea here is if not needs login. In other words, if that file does exist, check the auth file. And what check auth file will do is it will actually get the file and load one of these values, or I should say emit one of these signals if it fails or succeeds. So else, in other words, if we have never logged in on this machine, or another example is if you have anonymous login enabled, which I'm going to show you how to do a little bit later in this video, this will create a new ID for that user, a new login in Firebase for that user. And part of the reason that we save the auth file is because it saves the ID for that user. It will actually be able to log in with that user's ID again. And so you won't get another user logged into your backend for every single time a single user logs into your game or application. And one of the nice things is you can actually make this check occur without hitting a button. And so you can check to see if not needs login and just bypass the login screen altogether. We're not going to do that here. I'll probably do that in a future video, but just so you can see this, I wanted to add it here. So if the email is empty and you're calling this attempt login, we're just going to assume it's login anonymous. So you can see the code for that here. And if the email has values in it and a password, then it will actually try to log you in. Now we're going to attempt to sign up. This is a different one. This is for if the user doesn't have an email address associated with your game yet, they can add it this way. And you'll note I'm checking to see if they're empty. This is a little bit stricter. Up here, I just check to see if the email is empty. and then attempt an anonymous login. This isn't really good code, so don't follow this. You want to follow something more like this, where it tries to crash if the email or password doesn't exist. And part of the thing that is a little bit odd about this that I haven't mentioned yet is assert is debug only. So if you're running this in release, this won't crash. And so you'll have to find some other way to notify the user and not attempt the sign up to say you can't have an empty email or an empty password. I'll put in, or I'll put and. Otherwise, we just call this sign up with email and password, and that will then sign the user up. The user will get an email where it says that they need to verify their email, and after they verify their email, then they'll be able to log into your application every time with that same email and password. And the plugin supports a bunch of different providers. I'm going to show you how to add different providers a little bit later in this video. Okay, and believe it or not, that's actually the entirety of this file. So next up, I'm actually going to show you something a little bit simpler to handle something that I haven't actually shown yet. It occurs to me I haven't actually shown you what this view looks like. So let's take a look. Here's our view, and that's just what it looks like. It looks pretty good, right? This is the entire view, and obviously nothing here is styled. The framework that I mentioned before does support a bunch of styling things, but it doesn't support everything yet. I'm still working on it. But once we get there, it's going to be really nice. And here's a little trick for you that will help with basically every game that you make. It doesn't have to be any of this stuff, but it's particularly useful here. There's a tiny little button. It's very hard to see on my screen, but it looks like kind of like two windows, one in front of the other, in the script editor. If you hit that button, it will actually tear away the script editor, so you can use it separately from the main window. And the reason that's nice is we can now go back to the main window, shrink this, and then take our script editor and pull it over here. And this is nice because we have the ability to actually make changes here. So if I wanted to put these back into an HBox, I can just type in HBox here, hit save, and then Control-Shift-X, and notice it updates it live. And that is something that my plugin supports that is really, really nice, I think. So keep that in mind if you want to be able to see changes that you're making with this live, then you absolutely can. And that is that. So there you go. Okay, now we're going to go to our actual login view.gd, since remember, we don't have any code in that, aside from this, or actually we didn't have any code. I added this while you weren't looking. And I'm going to show you now how to use some utilities that you can find in my Firebase plugin. The first one is utilities.multisignal. Keep in mind I'm probably going to be changing the name of this class in the future, the utilities part, and the reason for that is utilities is a very generic name, but plenty of other plugins use it, so I don't want to get type collisions. But for now, it is named utilities, and I'm using this multi-signal. Now, what a multi-signal is intended to be is in Godot, if you have, say, 10 signals, I don't know what they are, let's just say you have 10, and you wanted to await all of them at once. You actually can't do that. And maybe you want to await them all to know when they all fire, when they're all completed, or maybe you just want to know when the first one completes and then be done with it. Well, that's just not possible in Godot in an easy fashion. So what I've done is I've made this little utility that makes it far, far easier. So next up, what we're going to say is, again, I'm going to copy paste this because I don't want to make typos. So we're going to add our ready function, and we're going to say login multisignal equals utilities.multisignal.new, and then we're going to pass in fire.loggedin. Notice this is an array, and fire.login error. Because here's the thing. In the game, we don't really care which of these fires first. We just care that one of them fires first. And this multi-signal, when it fires its completed signal, it will actually tell you which signal fired in a parameter, which is super nice. So you'll get, if only one of them fires, you'll get that one when it fires completed. And then we'll just say .completed, .connect. Technically, you could yield or await completed here, but we're not going to do that. We're going to hook it up to an actual handler. And then for our email login, anonymous login, and sign up buttons, we've got handlers for the pressed on those as well. Okay, and so we're going to handle now sign up pressed, email button, and anonymous pressed. And we're just going to copy paste those in. And you'll see I have this little helper function, so I'm going to go grab that as well. I've got 2 of them over here. Shift tab that back. Now the important things to note here are when sign up is pressed, we change the text on our status label, and we actually have attempt. It's funny. I have a typo in my original implementation of this. It should be attempt sign up. And that now changes everything when you hit that for on sign up pressed. For on email button pressed, that should be attempt login. And in every case, we want to disable the buttons, and the reason for that is just because we don't want them like hitting the buttons rapidly or anything like that. And then on anonymous button pressed, that one, same thing here. We set the text so that we know it's a little bit different from the one for the email button, but we just attempt login with nothing passed in, and that will automatically attempt an anonymous login. And that's just kind of like my lazy way of attempting anonymous login instead of having a function to do it itself. So now we've got this disable one. All that does is disable them, like I mentioned, and then we have enable, which enables all of them. And the last thing we need, you see we have this red up here for on login complete. So I'm just going to grab that and come over here and put it in again. I'll just put it kind of in the middle here. And so we get one signal or one thing firing. And note also, I just want to mention this because you can't really see it, but you get a few different values here. You get early exit, which is a Boolean, or you get should one shot, which is defaults to true. And that means that if any other of these fire, it's not going to matter because whatever the first one is that fires is the only one that gets called. So that's kind of nice. And early exit, all that means is it will run all of them or only one of them. Early exit says, get me the first one that fires. Okay, now we're going to come back and allow us to see the screen a little bit. And so then we just check. And note, you can actually use signals in this fashion and pass them around in Godot. I think it's a thing that a lot of people don't realize. And so you say if sig, the one that comes in, note you can't name it signal because that's a keyword. It'll turn red. If it equals fire.loggedin, so that's one of the ones. If it equals fire.loggedin, one of the ones that we passed in here, as you can see, then we just change the login status label to logged in. Otherwise, we change it to there's a login error. And now you'll note I have this check your env file. What an env file or .env file is a file that you can include in Godot that it will treat as part of the environment variables for your game. And we load that in the Firebase plugin. So one of the very common things that happens is people forget to include their env file, or they don't update the example and rename it, not knowing any better, and ultimately they can't get their game or application actually functioning with Firebase because they've forgotten it. So that's one thing to note, and obviously you would not want to show this to an actual user. This is purely for the developer to know that they need to add their env file. And then here, just for safety's purposes, safety's sake, we set the text on the email input and the password input to null or empty string. And the reason for that is typically when you're doing a login on an application, you want to clear these values as soon as possible, as soon as you know that they can be cleared. And that is simply because if there happens to be a hacker who's trying to use the information on someone's machine, storing it in the actual text will make it less likely that that hacker has access to it. So it will disappear as soon as possible. And yeah, that's that. You could add this code to when the button is pressed. I leave it in case there's an error. I want them to be able to change, like, oh, maybe I fat fingered the email, something like that, and they just want to go and change it, they can do that. So we're not going to run this now because I haven't actually set up the env file, but I'm going to show you now, I believe, how to actually get Firebase set up. Okay, so for this, the first thing you're going to do actually is you're going to go to create a Firebase project. Now you can see I've got all these projects over here. I've blurred them out so that you can't actually see them. But in this case, we're just going to give it a new name. I'm going to call this Diurnal Productions Firebase Demo. Oh, can't be longer than that long. So we're going to say Diurnal Prod Firebase Demo. Diurnal Productions is my company, so we'll just leave it like that. And we'll say Firebase Demo. Now it says enable Gemini in Firebase. I'm actually going to not enable that because I don't really care for the AI quote-unquote assistance. We're going to continue. We're not going to enable analytics, and the reason for that is there's no REST-based API for analytics in Godot, and there's not in general. There's not in Firebase at all. And so we can't actually use analytics unless you have the specific libraries for it. So we're just going to create project, and it's going to prepare it. Okay, it has completed production of our Firebase backend. So now we'll hit continue. Now you can see it's got a bunch of stuff here, and you can see it's got a bunch of stuff up in the search bar here. That's all stuff that you might need to know later, but for now, let's go ahead and do some basic stuff. We're going to go to authentication here where it says that, and we're going to get started. We're going to click on email password. We're going to enable it. Now, you can do an email link for passwordless sign-in. I'm going to ignore that for the time being and just leave it as is. We're going to hit add new provider, and we're also going to add anonymous. And the reason for that is simply because I like to use anonymous for debugging purposes. If your users in the future, if you don't want users to have to actually put in their email and password or anything like that, you can use anonymous login, but it's not really recommended. But it does give you specific security rules and Firebase rules that make it so you can just suddenly disable stuff way more easily and not mess things up for other users. So maybe just that one anonymous user, if they're trying to abuse your database, you can just ban them, and this will help with that. So I always recommend turning on anonymous. In the plugin right now, login is enforced. So if you don't have any valid authentication value, it will throw an error and attempt to log you in anonymously automatically. That is because that is how strongly I personally, as the library designer, believe in allowing authentication / anonymous control or anonymous authentication. And without any sort of controls on it, anybody's going to be able to come into your Firebase instance and basically start manipulating stuff. So you don't want that. You want to build strong controls. You want to build strong rules, prevent people from abusing it. I'm going to show you how to do that. And so we're just going to hit save here with anonymous. Now, you can see I don't have this upgraded because the default is not having it. I'm going to leave it off, and I'm not going to handle MFA. You'll note it's available on both Spark and Blaze plans. You can do that, and you probably should. I don't recall if the plugin supports it even, to be honest, but if it does, or if it doesn't, I will probably be adding that in the future. So now you can see users here, we don't have any. Okay, that's fine. It looks like in the future dynamic links are going to be shut down, so we're just going to ignore this for the time being. And yeah, so everything here is good. Let's see here what we need. I think we're actually done on this. We've got settings, user actions, blocking functions, all these things. I don't think we actually, yeah, that's all upgradable stuff. So you can ignore that for now. Authorized domains. For an authorized domain, what that is, you'll add that when you're adding a different login method. So like, for example, if you have sign-in methods up here and you add a provider for Google or Facebook or GitHub or any of these, or Twitter, for the ones that we support, you can actually log in with those, and the flow will be exactly right if you're not on mobile. If you're on mobile, it will probably only work on iOS. Android has some bugs in it, not in the plugin, Android itself, that doesn't allow you to access certain things. So I don't recommend using those, but if you need to, if you feel the need to for your big application, go ahead. Okay, now what's up next? We're going to go back to project overview. So we've got authentication now. That's all we need for the time being. In the future, I'll show you how to add other stuff. But what we're going to do is now go here. Now we have our overall project. That's what this is. And you'll note also at the top it says Spark Plan. The Spark Plan is the free plan. This is completely free to you. You can do whatever you want with it, and it's good for any type of backend. You can use web, you can use Android, iOS. Technically, you can use Unity, even though that's a bad word on this channel. You can use Flutter, and they all come with a very generous free tier, which is really nice. So if you ever have to upgrade, you can do that. I'm not going to show you how to do it. It's a little bit complicated. Now I'm going to show you how to get this, just authentication, into Godot. So you have to come down here, and you have to hit this web button. Now it sounds weird because why would you be using a web one? You can use Android, you can use iOS,
but I like to use web because it's more generic than either of those. And remember, this is available cross-platform for any platform on Godot. And if you want to put in different things, there are ways to do that, different values for your end file. I don't support that directly in the plugin, but let me know in the issues to the Godot Firebase repo if you want me to support different specific end files. Happy to do so, and it shouldn't be too difficult, but for the time being I'm just going to hit web and just use that generically. And so this nickname is, we're going to say definitive Firebase demo. Now I'm calling this definitive because there's a few other library, or rather videos out there about how to use this, and they all get something wrong. So I wanted to make this for you, to make it easier for you to actually build your Firebase application. Now it shows you saying, npm install Firebase. We're going to ignore that completely for the time being. All we're going to do is we're going to copy this Firebase config here, and we'll just say continue to console. And now what we're going to do is something a little bit odd. We're going to open a new window in our Visual Studio Code here, and we're going to say new file, and we're going to just say it's just going to be called env. Now I'm doing this for a specific reason on a Mac. I believe on Windows you can start files with the dot, but on a Mac you cannot. So we're just going to call it env, and we're going to find our project now and put it in there. So this is on the base thing, so it is, what did I call it? That's right, Firebase Definitive. We're going to go into add-ons, and we're going to go into Godot Firebase, and we're just going to save it here. Now, in that file, I have this example.env. So we're just going to hit this, and we're going to put this in. Then we're going to go into our project. This is a little bit complicated, so I apologize, but it's actually very easy once you get the hang of it, and once you've done it a couple of times. We're going to go into our example env, open with, well, we're also going to open it with Visual Studio Code, and you'll see what it looks like. It looks a little bit odd. This is Godot's own file format. So this is a text file that has all these environment variables in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to copy over the exact same values from our other file. So you don't actually have to put the env file in there if you don't want to. You don't have to save it, but you do have to get the auth domain and a bunch of other things that we'll add later, and to make sure that we know what we're doing. And this is, what was this? This is the project ID, storage bucket, a messaging sender ID. We don't technically need that because there's no API for it, but we'll leave it. An app ID, I think that is technically used, but I don't know if it's any useful. That was just plain app ID. Okay, so these other ones, I'm going to actually leave them, but you don't have to put them in. You can ignore cache location. It's not used anymore. Things are cached locally on or in your tree. So let's see here. In the future, we're going to use the real-time database, so that'll be the database URL, and I'll show you how to get that. I'll just save this example.env file, and this one, we're actually not going to save this. In fact, close this. We'll just delete that file altogether. I forgot that I had the example one. Now you can rename this to just .env, and it's asking if we want to use the dot. We do. And the reason it's asking is because normally on a Mac, if you have a dot in front of the name, the file will actually disappear. You can rename it. It's a private file to the folder. But in our case, I already have them showing. For me, I think it's Control-Shift-period or something like that as a shortcut to show the hidden files in this folder. But this is all you need for this.
Okay, and we're back. And now I've got it all set up like I had in my previous project where the text was too small. And one thing to note that I had not mentioned in that project or in that recording is you won't see the .env file in here. That file is a hidden file in iOS. So anything that starts with a dot on iOS is hidden. And so you won't see it in Godot either. I think it doesn't read it. But note, if you go to export a project, you do have to tell it to include star.env in your resources. And I'll go over that in detail in a future video once we're actually trying to export our game. But for the time being, just keep in mind you have to do that or it will give you an error saying it can't find the env file. And it will be hard to debug because it will be in the exported version and not in the engine itself. So let's just give this a shot. We're going to hit play here. Oh, and let's see here. We're going to just select current as our active one. I'll move this over. So this looks a little bit odd because it's so small, but that's because it's embedded the window, which I think we shouldn't really have, but that's okay. We're going to do this. So we hit this, it'll scale it. And so we can actually check anonymous login, for example, and it's logged in. So that's actually done. So this is the whole thing. And yeah, remember that for this, you can type things in here and things should show up like you expect them for different controls. I haven't supported every control, but I have supported a lot of them. And in the future, I am intending to support all of them. It just takes a little while to type up these functions, or modifiers as they're called. And yeah, so let's see here. Oh, one last thing I wanted to mention, because I can't remember if I mentioned it in the previous video. I wanted to explain what an env file is. When I say environment variables, all that is values that Godot uses that you can load and include, and somehow or other they get used in the application. And the reason we need them is so that the Firebase plugin knows to connect to Firebase. It knows how to connect to Firebase. It knows the strings and all the things. In Godot, they should be kept a little more secure than they are, but it's not actually possible. And those values are designed to live on the client. You can, in your Firebase backend, very quickly replace them as needed. If somebody's abusing them, you can just tell them to regenerate those values, and they'll just be regenerated. And then in the future, you can redeploy using the new values. The old values will not work, so you're kind of messing up your game. But if you're doing that, make sure that your .env, if it's in a repository, make sure that repository is not public. If it is public, hide that file. Put that into your gdignore script, or your gdignore file, because you don't want that to be given to the world. It's not the end of the world, like I said, because you can regenerate them, but it's both annoying, and if you're just making a tool, you don't want people to come in and use your environment variables for that. That's just, kind of awful. So that's all for now. I'm going to say goodbye, and hopefully this one is a little bit more readable than the previous one, and I'll make sure to do this in the future as well. So thank you very much. In our next video, we're going to be going into the aspects of an actual multiplayer game. We're going to be building it so that the multiplayer game is far more functional than what you normally have in Godot tutorials on YouTube. And yeah, it should be pretty fun. So I'll see you then. Thanks, and like and subscribe, please. Thank you. Bye.